Good evening and welcome to this Friday night edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, misleading through misdirection. The way I see it, those who seek to lead have a clear direction. Those who seek to mislead depend on misdirection. The Clinton campaign is actively pursuing that latter course. WikiLeaks has served this week as a proverbial window washer, wiping away the excessive wall of mud, giving us a clear look at how the Clintons say one thing and do another. If Rip Van Winkle had dozed off in December of 1998 and just reawakened this week, he would be amazed at the role reversal in public life. Bill Clinton impeached for a sexual relationship with a White House intern, his wife working to destroy the reputation of other women who say they had been treated improperly 18 years ago, now accusing Hillary's opponent for the presidency of engaging in Bill-like behavior. Now, don't misunderstand, Donald Trump is no choir boy. But with the number of his accusers increasing on a daily basis and in almost exponential fashion, it appears to me so excessive as to be a gross exaggeration. Kind of like when Hillary quotes Michelle Obama, "When they go low, you go high." If this is high, I'd hate to see what low is. And that's the way I see it. Actually, there is nothing high-minded about the current tactics being used against Donald Trump, but there is another H word that applies: hypocrisy. Miranda Khan has more on the latest assertions and the contradictory undertones also involved. Miranda?
JD, former Apprentice contestant Summer Zervos and Kristen Anderson now join the growing list of women who are accusing the GOP presidential nominee of sexual misconduct.
He then grabbed my shoulder and began kissing me again very aggressively and placed his hand on my breast. I pushed his chest to put space between us, and I said, "Come on, man, get real." He repeated my words back to me, "Get real," as he began thrusting his genitals.
The person on my right, who unbeknownst to me at that time was Donald Trump, put their hand up my skirt. As I pushed the hand away and I got up and I turned around and I see these eyebrows, very distinct eyebrows of Donald Trump.
And Kristen Anderson, who you just heard from, made those comments while speaking to the Washington Post, a publication which, by the way, just endorsed Hillary Clinton for president as of a day ago. A coincidence? Probably not, if you ask Trump and some of his fellow Republicans.
Categorically false.
Governor Mike Pence made the media rounds today, echoing Donald Trump's comments about the recent allegations being made against him.
They're 100% made up.
Trump accused the Clintons of knowing they're false, also striking against Trump First Lady Michelle Obama.
The belief that you can do anything you want to a woman, it's frightening.
Mrs. Obama is already being described as Hillary Clinton's secret weapon, unleashing a harsh attack on Mr. Trump without ever mentioning him by name. But conservatives say there's an even stronger tool in Clinton's arsenal.
The corrupt media.
Michelle Obama's speech from yesterday, it's very powerful.
She was able to, I think, connect with women in a way that Hillary Clinton hasn't been able to.
We know that the Democrats are going to be working with media.
You brag that you have sexually assaulted women. Do you understand that?
The media goes chasing after, unsubstantiated allegations coming from a newspaper that 6 months ago, you remember, did a massive similar story that was utterly discredited by the same reporters.
And no paper is more corrupt than the failing New York Times.
Trump and Pence say their campaign is working on producing evidence that will disprove the sexual misconduct allegations that have been made against Trump. And if the polls are right, he probably needs to do it sooner rather than later, JD.
Well, yeah, we're what now, 26 days out? Certainly when you're in less than a month's time, it is crunch time. And Miranda, the irony is this is a far cry from what we heard from Michelle Obama while she was campaigning for her husband back in 2007. In fact, she attacked Hillary over former President Clinton's infidelities. Here's the way it sounded then.
The important aspects of this race is role modeling what good families should look like. And my view is that if you can't run your own house, you certainly can't run the White House.
Basically saying Hillary Clinton is disqualified to be president? That's kind of the message I was getting from that. But that was then. This is now, JD. You know how this works.
And what is interesting, of course, is the dominant media culture gives that scant attention and trying to promote an idea. Well, that's just politics. You say something then, and gee, if that works in politics, what about personal relationships? Curious. Miranda Kahn, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined now by international reporter Margaret Howell. She joins us this evening from Newsmax Washington. Also at Newsmax Washington, Democratic strategist Atima Omara. We thank you both for your time on Newsmax Prime. We'll go alphabetically. A is for Atima, and you've heard a lot here. I just want your reaction to the situation that exists where in the past it apparently was okay for the Clintons, but now it's wrong for Mr. Trump.
Well, I'd actually disagree with that. I would say in the 90s, it was wall-to-wall coverage. Certainly when he ran for president, a lot of the stuff came up for when he was governor. And then, of course, when he was going into a second term. And then, of course, we all know about the Monica Lewinsky situation. I mean, he was impeached, for heaven's sakes, over it. And so I don't think, folks have obviously not forgotten about that. They bring it up. But the important point here is that Hillary Clinton is the one running for president, not him. And that's who we should be talking about.
Well, let's talk more about Hillary. Let's bring in Maggie to do it, because there are apparently two different standards for Mrs. Clinton. In the 90s, and I remember, in fact, as a member of Congress, I voted to impeach Mr. Clinton for committing perjury. And the Senate decided not to move forward. They acquitted him, but that's part of history. Meantime, though, Hillary was working quite hard to impugn the integrity of Mr. Clinton's accusers back then. But now, help me out with it, Maggie.
Well, that's right. The vast right-wing conspiracy was at fault there, not her husband, of course. So, look, women have been accusing Bill Clinton of sexual misconduct for 32 years, beginning at Oxford, where he was supposedly expelled for sexual misconduct. So this is nothing new. Look, I want to go back to Trump for a moment, because we understand that the Trump tape specifically was leaked by GOP insiders, not the Clinton camp. So he's at war within his own camp right now, not necessarily with Clinton. But I have to say, I'm so uplifted with the last debate, because he really went on the offense. And look, he had a sort of a locker room issue, and he wheeled out three of Clinton's sexual assault accusers and put them on the front row of a debate. Historically speaking, I don't think that's ever happened in the history of any debate. But look, Bill Clinton, he has a lot of fodder to talk about, but more importantly, WikiLeaks and Clinton is where we need to take this focus, because the sex talk, frankly, Trump is on the offense, it's getting a little old, and let's take this to issues finally.
Well, let's try to get to those issues, but obviously, and Atima, listen, I understand. I'm a lifetime 6-2. I won more than I lost, and the dynamic is this: when we take away party labels, here's the situation. If a campaign's decided on issues, if you're behind and the issues don't cut your way, you got to make your opponent the issue. And I'll give the Democrats credit. That is what they are trying to do to Donald Trump right now, and the polling right now shows women with a big lead. So from your perspective, is it just a situation where wherever the information is coming from, for Democrats just to keep on keeping on, trying to make Mr. Trump the issue?
Well, I think actually that...
Let's let Atima answer this first, Maggie, then we'll get your comments.
I was going to say that Hillary Clinton, I think, would be very thrilled to only talk about the issues. If you noticed in that debate, while Trump rambled on, didn't talk about any plans and just wanted to throw a lot of accusations, she engaged with voters, talked about her plans on the economy, criminal justice reform, health care, you name it, and that's where she stayed. She has stayed high, and she actually quoted Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. So it's sort of ridiculous, because he has been the one getting in his own way. I know that the Trump campaign cannot be thrilled, and we've certainly heard that from sources inside the campaign, that he's staying on this and not talking about the issue. So he's tripping his own self up to his detriment, because it's showing that he's rapidly dropping with college-educated women voters. He's below... I think he's 20 points down with them, whereas Romney won them by 6 in 2012. So he really needs to refocus, talk about the issues. But now the more and more he keeps talking, the more and more he keeps angering, these people who are coming forward and saying, this happened to me. And it's quite arrogant that he's denying that this actually happened. So that's what's happening.
Look, we saw the same thing, the same similar types of attacks happen to Herman Cain, women coming out of the woodwork, unsubstantiated. When you attach a court deposition to it, then maybe we'll talk, when they get on the record, legally speaking, anybody can come out in front of the media and say absolutely anything they desire to say. It doesn't make it true. What real smart women care about, though, what I personally care about is security, jobs, my home, national security, immigration, as you mentioned, healthcare, not some stupid sex tape or heated what to who.
Some stupid
I'm so
sex tape? Are you kidding me? What you call locker room talk was absolutely disgusting, and I cannot believe that you would even dismiss it as anything like that. And
there's not condoning.
To say is that sexual assault is actually a real issue in this country, and it happens to a lot.
That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point, Atima. The concern is that we might be trivial.
And we need to look no further than Bill Clinton for sexual assault.
Because this is so important, let me intervene here, because the clock, a real four-letter word, time, has gotten in our way. What we're going to ask you to do is stay right there, because obviously this is an invigorating debate, and I think illuminating in many ways. There is much more to talk about on what is a very busy Friday in the campaign, and we'll get to it as Newsmax Prime continues.
The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves.
Donald Trump taking on what he calls the corporate media at his rally yesterday in South Florida, continuing the theme of trying to rally against the elites who appear to be aligning against him. Let's continue our conversation now with our panel, both of them joining us from Newsmax Washington. First, international reporter Margaret Howell, and also Democratic strategist Atima Omara. Ladies, we appreciate it, and we were getting into quite an invigorating discussion before the break. Atima, you were voicing concerns about sexual harassment, and the point that I was trying to make is, do we run the risk, especially if some of these accusations turn out to be false, the number of accusations, are we actually trivializing by politicizing the whole notion of sexual assault?
I actually don't think so. You have rape and sexual assault in this country is underreported by 63%. Women don't come forward generally because people won't believe them. They don't think the police will handle the investigation. So when they feel comfort in others coming forward, which is what you saw in the Bill Cosby case, which is what you saw with Woody Allen and what you're seeing now with Donald Trump, and now, of course, again, I think the Apprentice contestant who came forward, she looks like she has a lawyer, so I don't know if she's pursuing any legal action or anything. But once those are further investigated, obviously more folks just tend to come forward, and it just highlights a problem in our society about essentially this rape culture, where folks don't want to talk about it and are shamed into not talking about what's happened.
Maggie, there's another name that has not come up yet, but I remember it pretty well because I know the guy pretty well, Herman Cain. Do you remember the parade of stories that came out 4 years ago about Herman Cain? And
I absolutely do.
I just, what happened to all those charges? Because if there was some veracity.
Disappear.
Yeah.
Right. Don't they go away when the political candidate, falls aside? The same thing's going to happen with Trump. Look, I agree with your panelist on one thing. Rape is incredibly serious, but let's look at the facts here. Bill Clinton settled an allegation of sexual harassment for $850,000. He actually paid money out because he harassed someone without admitting guilt here. So Trump has been accused in the media. We've tried him successfully. We're going to hang him out back next. But look, you have to substantiate claims. Yes, rape is serious, but much more importantly, the man comes out. Yes, there's this locker room tic-tac-talk of some woman and her, newly implanted chest. I listened to it, and frankly, that is serious. But more importantly, on the other side of this, we have a candidate and her spouse. We have an enabler, and we have somebody who has been actually accused of raping women.
Okay, again, Bill Clinton's not running for president. Number two, Hillary Clinton, each of those times that she defended her husband and attacking someone, was like, he told her, honey, I didn't do this. So, you know, at some point, I mean, women do have to choose to believe their spouses or not, that take that up with her. But she went in full faith as a spouse defending her husband as being attacked politically is what she believed. Hence why we have the famous vast right-wing conspiracy.
Right, okay, so she's an enabler. We'll give her that. She's one heck of an enabler. But more importantly, let's focus on real issues here. So,
hey, hang on. We got to have one at a time. Maggie, you make your point, then Atima will come back. Go ahead, Maggie.
Look, we have real news going on this week, and I have been knee-deep in it all week long, looking at these WikiLeaks emails. We know that we're talking about a candidate that's colluded with foreign dictators. She's been knee-deep in a pay-to-play scandal. Let's not to mention her actions in Haiti and what she did to those poor people. Let's just focus on Trump and some women who have accused him of something that really hasn't been substantiated yet, because we really can't focus on the issues at hand here, which more importantly, you know, we have a major issue going on with the Secretary of State. And I just want to point out one thing, because we might get to WikiLeaks. I was just reading this earlier. No. Bill Ivey, who was in Clinton's campaign, he said, look, to our advantage, the people who elect us, the voters, we need to keep them compliant and unaware. That is a bombshell, much more importantly than some baseless accusation we can banter about for 2 hours.
Let's give Atima a chance. Atima, go ahead.
Yeah. You know what is a bombshell? The fact that Russia finds it interesting to interfere with our elections, that Florida's voter profiles have been messed with by Russia, that Roger Ailes, who used to work for Fox News, actually has admitted to actually having back channels to WikiLeaks. That is the actual serious problem here. We should all be concerned.
As someone who has lived and worked in Russia, you have to substantiate that. It's not enough for Clinton to say it.
Okay, hang on.
There's a country is interfering in our democratic elections.
Time
and
out.
To the point of sexual assault charges. Kathleen Willey and Juanita Broderick were so problematic in the testimonies that Ken Starr, the avenging angel of the conservative movement, didn't even want to bring Juanita Broderick forward. So that's a problem within and of itself. A lawyer as well established as he was didn't even want to bring her forward.
Well, there may be some other extenuating circumstances. For example, that happened, I believe, a decade and a half to 2 decades before Mr. Clinton's time in the White House. The charge of the special prosecutor was to deal with what had transpired while Mr. Clinton was president. So you have that field of
evidence to establish a pattern was basically.
Okay, I see. Maggie, you wanted to make another point here because we've had quite an interesting discussion. Go ahead, Maggie.
Look, I'm all for the sex talk. It's interesting and fun, but more importantly, we have an election going on. 26 days out, 25 days out. We have some serious issues here, and we have a cache dump of 33,000 emails, primarily involving John Podesta, her campaign manager, and Clinton. And what we learn about how she really feels about Americans, about you and I, how they want us dumb and unaware and compliant, how they're afraid of Trump because of his celebrity status and his honesty and his appeal. You know, we could endlessly talk about issues here. Her collusion with foreign dictators. Why did Qatar give Bill Clinton $1 million on his birthday? What did they get in exchange for that? We've got some serious issues on the table here. Again, we could go round and round about who said what about whom, but much more importantly, you know, the person that's going to be assuming that White House, we want to know who they are. We want to know their character, and as people, as the people voting, we have a right to know who we're putting in office. And frankly, this is something that we need to discuss, and I'm not about, you know, crucifying Juanita Broderick right now, because if somebody is claiming that she's been raped, the least we can do is give her credence and maybe believe her. You know, that's pretty basic.
Well, let's give Atima the last word on this. 30 seconds, Atima.
Well, I'm glad you believe that women who come forward and say that they have been assaulted should be believed, such as the women who are coming forward about Donald Trump. That being said, I do think that Trump has some things that we should be talking about the issues, but I do think Trump has some real issues as well with his own foundation that is illegal, with the fact that it's not properly registered, the fact that he's had pay-to-play stuff regarding his wife, who was made a goddess of Norwegian Cruise Airlines. He took that money and put it in the foundation, essentially using other people's money to not pay taxes. So, you know, we've got a lot of issues with Trump, his own organization, actually the actual Trump organization in Europe and other parts of the world, taking money from foreign entities as well, which could cause problems for our foreign policy down the road if he should become president. So I would love to talk about the issues, but Trump certainly deserves scrutiny.
Well, I think we're giving a lot of scrutiny and having a good dialogue tonight. Atima Omara, you are a lady in demand. We understand you have a tight schedule. We want to thank you for your time tonight. Look forward to having you back again here on Newsmax Prime. Thanks very much. Maggie, while we're talking about this, I know the desires to get back to the issues, and you had some interesting comments about Russia. But before I get there, let me stop with Rush, because he has the ears of so many conservatives around the country, and he talked about this collusion, the media in step with the Democrats to make these attacks personal. Let's listen to the way he put it.
We know that the Democrats are going to be working with media and releasing stories disguised as news stories, which are nothing more than opposition research, and they are designed to destroy Republican candidates for president. Not just their campaigns, but destroy them as human beings.
So we got about a minute left. We understand destruction on a personal level in terms of politics, but I'm also curious if I could tie this other story together, because we've seen the headlines. Vladimir Putin recalling Russian students, basically putting Russia on what appears to be a war footing. While we're having this political de facto war here at home, what are the Russians up to as well? About 45 seconds.
He's doing this in response to White House statements. The White House came out 3 weeks ago and said, look, we're washing our hands of Russia because of Syria, because of the cluster bombs in Aleppo. You know, Syria is a sovereign state, and they invited Russia in to deal with whatever they're dealing with. And that's another matter for a different day. But our foreign policy is run amok. And I think that our response of saying we're done with Russia, we pulled out September the 9th, Americans, specifically in Syria, because we were retracting our peace talks. And much more importantly, a 16-year-old treaty and accord that Russia wouldn't be using any plutonium. They're backpedaling. I think that they're afraid, frankly. I think that there's a lot of misinformation coming out of the U.S. and the media, and Hillary Clinton is indicting them on a world stage, saying we're going to come after you militarily because we've accused you of hacking us. So,
oh, wow, this boy, this is really getting kind of scary. Man, we really appreciate the time. Have you back soon, and we have more after this.